Hello everyone, my name is Matthew Mackenzie. I usually help produce these videos, and it's been a long while since we produced another video regarding old classic books. What I'm going to do is ask Stephen to introduce himself. So Stephen, do you want to tell the viewers about yourself? Just 10 seconds is fine.
Hi, I am Stephen Vizinczey, the author of In Praise of Older Women, An Innocent Millionaire, Truth and Lies in Literature, and Three Wishes, my latest book.
Alright, it's excellent.
But the book I want to tell you about today is Dumas' Three Musketeers.
And Claire, would you?
My name is Claire Parker. I am a friend of Stephen's. I've known him for over 40 years. My profession's been mostly in teaching, but I've written a fairy story called Gossamer Island. In fact, there's a series of fairy stories about the same fairy.
Alright, and perhaps we'll do a bit of video about that one day. But for now, Stephen did mention Three Musketeers, but before we even go on to that, we want to talk about the author, Alexandre Dumas. He was born in, I believe it's the 24th of July, 1802, I believe. One of the most celebrated French author, best known for such novels as the Three Musketeers and the Count of Monte Cristo, making him one of the most widely French author in the world. But before we talk about the book, Stephen, about his famous books, we want to know a bit more about the author. Can you give us like 5-10 minutes on your views about Alexandre?
The author, and that's important to emphasize, was another mixed race child. He was the son of one of Napoleon's biggest generals, and a woman from the Caribbean, and so he was black. And one thing about Napoleon and Dumas, that under Napoleon you could be a black man and become a general, and that you couldn't have done in any of the Western nations.
Brilliant. And what made Alexandre a great author?
What made Alexandre Dumas a great author is first of all his background, that being mixed race, he was the general who sort of could see everything from every point of view. That's the advantage of being mixed race, that you can see everything from every point of view. And above all else, he was defending against Nelson and the Holy Alliance, Britain, the Republic, the Napolitan Republic. And he has personal experience of the cruelties of the Bourbons and the British. Nelson was a sadist, and you learn that from Dumas, General Dumas' son, and General Dumas himself. And the good thing about that is that Bertrand Russell said that if you want to learn your country's history, you read what the historians of other nations are saying. And if you want to know what the British Empire was in Europe, or who Nelson was, then you have to read Dumas.
You also mentioned he was very witty in his writings.
Well, that's another thing. What made him carry up, because everything is that he's one of the wittiest writers in world literature. Even Three Musketeers is a Schauberping novel, and full with improbabilities that they all carry on, because it's like a gate carry-on film. It's shows you the you slid over the improbabilities, because everybody is so correctly written, so wittily written. There is really, I cannot think of any writer in world literature who was wittier than Alexandre Dumas.
And you mentioned, obviously, due to the colour of his skin, and that in those times, you know, I guess he wasn't free of racism there. I mean, obviously...
Yes, I mean, that is, Napoleon has a very bad press in British history and by British writers, but in fact, only under Napoleon could you be black and be a general.
Because he had many critics.
He
had many critics. Alexandre had many critics in regards to his stories, and one of the things that they would criticise Alexandre on is his skin, is his race, which is quite unfortunate. But it just shows at the time, no matter how famous you were, how creative and talented you were, unfortunately, people could target you that way.
Yes, he is. When I was younger, especially, I read at least altogether about 5 or 6 times the Three Musketeers, because this war was a joy the weaver, and it's always exciting. I can reread it every 10 years, and it's also one for all. Is a great saying.
One for all and all for one. That's right.
All
motto.
for one, yes.
Yeah. So in fact, that leads us on to the first book we want to talk about. I mean, we've got a treat. We want to talk about 2 books, and the first one is The Three Musketeers. It's got to be one of the most well-known books, because there's been many films and TV series, I'm sure, about
Everything.
about this book, and it's basically...
I don't think there was any book
Yeah.
more often filmed or televised than the Three Musketeers.
But before, in case anyone's new to this, and I think this video might have some spoilers, just a bit of a summary about the Three Musketeers. Basically, I believe it started as in the newspapers, isn't it?
It's about the Artagan is a young man,
Yeah.
who comes to make his fortune in Paris with his with a horse which passes his time, and he gets 2 advice. His father advises to stand up for himself and don't tolerate insults, and don't go back from a fight, don't retreat from a fight. And his mother gave him a pot of cream,
Yeah.
to cure the wounds he would get by following his father's advice.
Yes.
And he comes to Paris and wants to be a musketeer.
Mm.
And the Three Musketeers is really about Cardinal Richelieu and the king, because the real power is in the hands of Richelieu. So the king is trying to, Richelieu was a priest, a cardinal, and also a general. And so much of the real power at the time was in the hand of both of Louis XIII and Richelieu. So they were the two most powerful men in France. And the story is about between the cardinalists and the king's musketeers.
Mm.
And he joined the king's musketeers and turns out to be a brilliant sword spearer. And originally he offends in going up to the captain of the musketeers. He offers every musketeer Athos, Porthos, and Aramis,
Mm.
and with thoughtless rush and saying things like Aramis, who claims to be a priest, wants to be a priest, and he is sort of a musketeer only in preparation for the church. He always wanted to be a priest, but in the meantime he was a musketeer. That's something very interesting about Dumas and all really good writers, that you have two characters, that everybody has at least two characters. So for what they are and what they hope to be.
Mm.
And Dumas captures that beautifully.
Brilliant. I want to see if I can bring clear in, and when I say bring clear in, I mean for it to come into the view of the camera, because it's almost hiding from you. And you know, Claire, a simple basic question, to be honest. I want to sort of get your view on why you think people should read the book The Three Musketeers. I mean, why should anyone read that in today's?
First and foremost, it is incredibly entertaining for all ages, for adults and especially for youngsters, teenagers. They would warm to a story of such incredible adventure. So it appeals to a great range of ages.
Mm.
And yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's got many twists and turns. I mean,
Very
the first thing I knew about the book is obviously by watching Three Musketeers. I think it was in the 1970s, a movie about that. It just keeps you entertained. I'm sure the
That's
book
right. With
even more so.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the series.
And how about yourself, Stephen? Why should anyone read The Three Musketeers in the modern
Well,
age?
you should read it especially if you are young,
Yeah.
because it is everything. It is a thriller, a historical thriller. So you learn a bit about history, and you learn about human beings, and you learn about wit. And so I think if you're a young man of 10, let's say, starting out, I cannot think of a better book to be introduced to good literature. And if you are a parent, a book to give to your teenage children is The Three Musketeers.
Excellent, excellent. We want to now move on to another book that you also enjoy, Stephen, which is also fairly famous, called The Black Tulip. And I believe it was set in I think around in Holland, a story about Cornelius who grows tulips, and his sole desire is to grow the perfect specimen of a tulip, but unfortunately his godfather is murdered. So Cornelius finds himself caught up in politics at the time, imprisoned and facing a death sentence. So I believe his jailer's daughter actually holds the key to his survival. A very interesting book, Stephen. Do you want to tell us a bit more about this, about the Black Tulip?
The Black Tulip. The Black Tulip is Dumas' best book, because first of all it's about King James, who became the main character, who at the time the elector of Holland. He came and became King of England as King James the First, and so it's also part of British history, and so it's partly about King James' youth, and he was a very how should I put it? He was a very ambitious man, and he thought of the main enemy as France, because the French always wanted to rule Holland, the Dutch, and it is his anti-French sentiments is what made him very pro-English, even before he became a monarch.
And there was also a time of a lot of religious conflict in that period. Do you want to come in there, Claire? And
well, he's the son of Mary Queen of Scots, and it was a very turbulent time in Britain at that time. So he was James VI of Scotland, and then became James I of the United Kingdom. Yes, you mentioned religion.
yeah,
Yes, I mean there's a lot of friction there between Catholics and Protestants. He was brought up as a Catholic, but switched over because it was more expedient, I suppose.
I think he was too much interested in power.
yeah.
So I think religion was never anything to him except means to power, as a handle to get power.
Yeah, yeah.
Or keep power.
Didn't he write a prayer book, which was used
Sorry?
by the Church of England? He wrote a prayer book. Yeah. He did.
He wrote a prayer book. I doubt that he wrote it.
Oh,
But
someone else
it
wrote
might have, or King James, about the Bible.
It was a prayer book about, oh, I don't know, I haven't read it. But it was used by
But
the Church of England.
The Bible, the King James Bible comes from
Yes, you're right, yes. King James Bible. Yeah.
Bible comes from him, which is one of the best example of English prose. It's still, the Bible is still one of the best pieces of English literature we have, and I often read passages from it. And the modern versions, like for instance the modern version of the Bible, they says that the wind blow over the sea And in the King James language, the Spirit of God went over the water. I mean, which is a better line. And so, in the King James Bible, the wind is described as the Spirit of God, which is a better image than the wind blew over the sea.
Let's go to the book, The Black Tulip. Simple question again. Why should anyone read it? You know, why are we talking about The Black Tulip? What's the idea for people to read that book for today?
Sorry,
And
you have a beautiful
yeah, I know
voice.
my voice is low, but I guess Claire heard me fairly well, so we start with Claire. Why should anyone read the book, The Black Tulip?
It's about a project to find something that had never been created before, a black tulip, so it gives people hope of doing something spectacular that's never been done before.
Yeah.
So it's...
I read the Bible for the language often.
But what I'm referring to is the actual book, The Black Tulip. Why should anyone read it?
Tulip,
Yeah.
as I say, it's part of British history.
Yeah.
Because he became King James of Scotland and then of the United Kingdom. And one of the reasons why he, in his youth, he was quite a cruel man. He, that's another thing incidentally about everything Dumas. He is very good about cruelty because he witnessed a lot in his life, and he is very good of the viciousness of the mob. And if for nothing else, it's worth reading him for that reason. The mindless cruelty of the mob. Few, right? Nobody described it better. Not even Tolstoy described better the mindless cruelty of the mob.
And that even reflects on your various French revolutions, because there was a lot of mob mentality.
Yes, yes.
So going back to James I, James VI of Scotland, that was also the time of the Guy Fawkes plot to blow up Parliament. So it was a very tumultuous, historically it was a very tumultuous time.
Well, thanks for enlightening our viewers, and I do hope viewers will decide to go out and buy any of those books, either The Three Musketeers or The Black Tulip, or even by chance get hold of Three Wishes, which is on Amazon. But what I'd like to say is thank you to both Stephen and Claire, and to viewers watching. We'll try and get another video out for you a whole lot sooner than the last one. So I'd like to say bye, and
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again soon. Brilliant.
Thank you.